Welcome to the Superior Adventurers Guild. Yes, I did it.
Nailed it.
I did. I didn't do it wrong this time. It's because I wrote it down. Anyway, hey, welcome. We're the Superior Adventurers Guild. This is Roll Your Doom. Today, we are talking with Jeff Stevens, who is a prolific writer of Dungeons and Dragons products on the DMs Guild and on the internet. He's a cool guy. You're going to meet him. It's going to be great. If you are joining us for the first time, again, welcome. If you're joining us for the second time, welcome back. If you want to find more out about anything that we do, we're on Twitter at Guild Superior, or right here on our Twitch channel, or on our YouTube channel if you're watching this in the future. So, you know, yeah. At the end of the show, around the last 10, maybe 15, 5 minutes, depending on how many people actually ask questions. If you ask questions in the chat using the command exclamation point question, you can type your question, and we'll hopefully have a nice queue of questions to ask Jeff at the end. And, you know, because you are interesting too. Yeah. And joining me today also is Dave.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good
good.
to see you.
Thanks for, yeah, thank you.
I'm excited, man. We get to talk to Jeff. I've been wanting to talk to Jeff for a long time, ever since we first played some of his, used some of his content. So this is great.
Awesome. So, hey, you may or may not know that Dave, I don't know what side he's actually on. Dave runs our weekly Beyond Saltmarsh Dungeons and Dragons games, which you can find right here on our Twitch channel.
True.
On Wednesdays. He, makes it difficult for us and tries to kill us a lot.
I have tried to kill you on multiple occasions, I will admit.
But my dice save me sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Next Roll Your Doom episode, 2 weeks from today, because we are now a every other week show. We're going to be meeting with at least some of the players that we had in our Altered State Index Card RPG one shot, and kind of talking about that experience for them of playing a different game and some of the nuances and differences and things. And that's going to be fun. I'm excited for that. We also have a new announcement to make. Special announcement.
That's right.
I myself am jumping into the Dungeon Master's chair starting March 18th from 7 to 10 p.m. right here, Central Standard Time, I should say, because you might be somewhere else like Japan.
Anywhere.
I'm going to be running a game of Dungeons and Dragons set in the Svealand campaign setting, which is a sort of Norse mythology inspired setting written by some very nice folks over at Dream Realm Storytellers. If you don't know who they are, check them out. James Narcaso interviewed at least one of the guys. Oh wow, like 2 years ago, I suppose, on his show, and it was great. They have Kickstarters, they have good stuff. DMs, Drive-through RPG. They were Drive-through RPG. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're fantastic. So join us March 18th for that, and then every week, every Thursday. I don't know why I chose Thursday.
Is it Thursday yet? Ooh, we can't say that, can we?
Now we're competing with Critical Role.
I get to play, which is great. I'm excited to be a player. So
I'm fine with it. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a guest. He's patiently waiting for us to stop rambling.
Yeah, let's. We gotta move this. We gotta keep this thing moving. All right, here we go. Everybody, say hello to Mr. Jeff Stevens. Hi, Jeff.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Rambly.
This is how we do it, Jeff.
It's great. It's great. First, I want to say thank you. It's an honor to be on the show. I can't believe people asked me to be on shows, so it's awesome.
Heck yeah! Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Feel
I'm
surprised
excited.
we have a show.
Here it is.
Shows, shows are fun. I mean, even if
Yeah.
you only have a few watchers, it's going to grow
Yep.
and they're fun. It's always great to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, we got introduced to I got introduced to Jeff. Dave ran one of his modules, Happy Jack's Funhouse, for
Yeah.
Halloween. I killed Happy Jack in my
Oh.
bovine form.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Oh,
that was
that was
ridiculous.
brutal. That was a little silly.
Yeah, going back and I hear people talk about how they killed Happy Jack and sometimes it was too easy. I'm thinking I should have given him legendary actions or something,
Oh, dude.
just giving him something else.
I don't think it wasn't that easy. You guys were kind of getting your butts kicked a little bit. Chad was playing a druid, and the best part about this whole game, honestly, was when the ending when he transformed into a cow, literally, and ended up using the gore attack, I think.
Yep.
It was
That's awesome.
ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It was great. That was
sounds
really
just like
fun.
what Happy. Yeah, that sounds good. And I got to give credit where credit's due. Rimley Farr is an amazing writer, and he helped me with that, and Tasha's Kiss, and Annalise's Revenge, and Blinsky's Toy Shop, and so yeah, we just work really well together, and yeah, it's always good to hear or to know that the stuff that we create is really enjoyed by everybody.
A lot of fun. I then was one of the first guests on Jeff's show.
You were.
Which is Jeff Talks RPGs.
You got it.
I always know that that's what it's called, but it sounds so normal that I forget that that's what it's actually called.
I wanted to keep it just plain and simple.
Yeah.
What's this guy Jeff talk about? He talked about RPGs.
Yeah, you know what you're gonna get. You know what you're gonna
Yeah,
get with that
yeah.
show. It's awesome. It's a great show.
Yeah, and on that episode I was talking to the consumer because as a creator, I wanted to know what the consumer wanted.
Yeah.
Are they interested in big, colorful, detailed maps? And surprisingly, some are, some aren't. What's the editing? How much editing is necessary? What are you looking for as far as text wise? That type of thing. It was great, a great show. And Chad, I really appreciate you being on that show.
Thank you. It was great. It was fun. So anyway, enough about me talking about you. Why don't you tell everyone who's out there who doesn't know anything about you a little bit about yourself?
Cool. I am Jeff Stevens. I live in Central Missouri, USA. I am also Central Standard Time.
Nice.
which makes scheduling podcasts and interviews easier, when we're on the same time zone. But yeah, I'm on the older crowd. I'm 49. I'll be 50 in May, and so I played D&D back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. And when I got out of college, I kind of got rid of all my stuff, thinking I wasn't going to play the game anymore. That was more for kids and college kids, and not really the adult thing to do. Well, come to find out, 2016, I think it was, my brother came to me and said, "Hey, we're playing some D&D. Some of the guys I work with, we're playing D&D. You want to join in?" I'm like, I don't know. That was a long time ago, but all right, fine. It'd be good to get some social interaction with some other fellas and stuff like that. And so played the end of 4th edition, going into 5th edition. Loved it. Had a great time. And when the campaign was done, the DM said, "Okay, who wants to run a campaign next?" And I had never DM'd before. I was always been a player. DMing had really before that, because as a kid we played all kinds of games. Twilight 2000, Champions, Gamma World. Loved Gamma World. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or played it, but great game. So I was always the player in those. But when it came time for the next DM, I said, I'll give it a try. And so I did that. And I based my first campaign off of Metallica and Primus song titles, because they're so inspiring.
Hell yeah.
And, afterwards I was like, and I took, being a first time DM, I had drawn maps, I took detailed notes, I wrote out NPCs and all this kind of, so I had all these documents. And that's what I found, the Dungeon Masters Guild. And I was skeptical at first. Looking at the stuff on there, I'm like, is this stuff any good? And I kind of read some stuff and I'm like, okay, there's some good stuff there, and this stuff's not so good. So some of the stuff I read, I was like, well, I can write at least as good as that. So I put my notes together, put up a product, and the first product I put up was The House of the Midnight Violet, which was based off a Primus song Hello, Mr. Crinkle. And when I say based off of just the idea of Hello, Mr. Crinkle, how are you today? Yeah, just gave me that. This, I was sitting there thinking, what if there was a little voice in the background when you open this door that says, "Hello, Mr. Tim Tom, how are you today?" And then just kind of grew from there. And so it just built the story about Mr. Tim Tom and this haunted house and what happened to the people inside of it. And that's where the inspiration came from. And so I put my first product up there. Thought I was going to sell 100 units on day one. I think I sold 3. And the moral of the story there is keep producing, don't stop, don't ever quit if you want to succeed in this industry.
Right.
And I loved doing it. It wasn't necessarily the sales. I mean, yes, sales are good, comments are good, reviews are good, 5-star ratings are great, but it was more the love of writing the story and trying to come up with an interesting way to relay that or have others experience the same story that I ran my players through. Just because I know we had fun doing it. And so, I just kept on writing and came up with some other ideas like the Savage Encounters line with, Encounters in the Savage Frontier, Savage Underdark, Savage Cities, and the Villains and Lairs projects where those are all NPCs of bad guys that you can just throw into your game as, say your players go off on a tangent and you need something to throw in there. Well, you've got this villain and this lair that you can throw into the game.
Yeah.
And, all these different ideas just kind of come to you as you're creating adventures. I dabble in player options. I've written a couple things, but that's not really my forte. I'm more of an adventure writer, and that's kind of where I stick to. I throw some player options up every once in a while, but
Jeff,
I just love writing adventures.
Can I just jump in? I wanted to ask you, were you always writing? I mean, do you have a history or a background in writing that inspired you to then kind of transition and pivot towards adventures and role-playing games? Or was it the role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons and others, that inspired you to start writing?
I had actually been writing a novel before I found the Dungeon Masters Guild and started writing Dungeons and Dragons. I had finished one and then started another one and written some short stories. And, I don't have a background in writing. I wish I did. I wish I had known that I wanted to go this route when I was in college. My degree is in criminal justice, so I'm not really using that. But yeah, I picked up reading in college. And when I mean reading, I mean like reading novels and just really digging into stories. I didn't, as a high schooler, college, I really didn't get into reading that much. But then I just kind of picked it up. Loved the stories, loved being sucked into those worlds of somebody else's mind. And so that's when I kind of started dabbling with short stories and novels. And then when I found the Dungeon Masters Guild, I focused all my attention there because I'm writing, I'm publishing, I'm making a little money off of it, and I can always go back to the novels later, which I hope to do one of these days.
Sure. Do you, since that time, have you ever done any creative writing, like training courses or anything like that? Or do you have your style, kind of your process, and that works for you?
I currently have my style. I do want to take some creative writing courses. I mean, I'd love to go back and relearn English just because my grammar is not that great. I mean, we all know English, but when you actually are looking at writing and creating interesting prose and that type of thing, there's always room for improvement, I think, there.
Sure. Well, I've also got I've got to imagine as well that there's a major difference between writing a novel and writing an adventure, right? Because an adventure, you have to leave certain details out to leave room for the dungeon master who's running the game to take the story in different directions, versus a novel, you really need to sort of guide the reader along. Can you speak to that at all? And was that transition easy for you or difficult?
Writing an adventure, the first, second, and third, probably even now, is not an easy task. Because you do have to, there's several pieces to an adventure. You have to write the storyline so the dungeon master knows where you're going. You have to write, some people write box text, others don't. I enjoy box text because it gives the DM something to kind of relay to the players. And then you also have to include the mechanics section that says, okay, well, if they do this, then this happens, or they need to roll a DC 15 strength check to avoid being pummeled by rocks or something that falls down. So you've got several layers that you write in an adventure. And so you not only need to know proper grammar and storytelling techniques, but you also have to know the 5e language of the mechanics language. So there's a lot to it. And do you have to be perfect? Do you have to follow a style guide? No, you don't have to follow the Wizards of the Coast style guide. You can write your own style. But when other people are reading it, they're, especially other DMs Guild creators, they're going to say, okay, well, you're not writing the style. You know, that's just something that we pick out. Whereas other DMs like you may not care,
Yeah.
you know, how it reads, as long as the information's there.
Does that affect sales, do you think? Whether or not it's formatted in the Wizards of the Coast style or not?
I'm not sure if it would affect sales or not. I know, you know, people who are using the official books are going to, you know, move from, okay, I'm running Tyranny of Dragons. I know this italics means magic items or spells, you know, and so is that what we're seeing in this other book, or are they italicizing monster names and bolding something else? So it could get confusing, I imagine, if you're doing different
Ease
styles.
of use, yeah. That
Yeah.
consistency definitely is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So many questions. So one thing, since you did talk about your your first adventure not so selling so much. So there's a phenomenon that I have noticed in myself. I refer to it as the metal phenomenon because I am now a big metalhead, but have only listened to metal now because of one time when I was doing a thing and randomly listened to one song, and now all I listen to is metal. That's not entirely true, but ultimately I've had metal in my past. That's a long way around. So do you notice sometimes that, or have you noticed that maybe things that didn't sell so well in the past have now, sometimes because of whatever reason, are now selling? That's
Yeah.
okay.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. You, especially around a certain times of the year, like,
Yeah.
so House of the Midnight Violet and Throne of Bone sell a little bit through, you know, a couple sales every month. And you know, but then as the time gets closer to Halloween, those titles like really sell. There's a few titles at Halloween that you will always see pop up at the top of the move back up to the top of the charts, and that's The Haunt by Bill Beckwith, PB Publishing, and The House of the Midnight Violet, because people just like those stories, those scary stories, you know.
Yeah.
Those, and so you always see those sales creep back up at that time of year. And you know, I'm sure that happens with other things, like if people are writing like a Valentine's Day themed adventure or a Christmas themed adventure. I just haven't written any of those. You know, people look for seasonal stuff, and so you will see that change, that
Nice. That makes
those
sense.
things that may not sell now, but they'll sell later.
So kind of like metal music, you know, like you didn't listen to it, it wasn't really your thing, and now all of a sudden that's all you listen to.
Right.
Yep.
That leads me to an additional question. Is like, when you sit down to work on a new project, Jeff, how do you decide what project to work on? Are you thinking more about like what's hot in the marketplace right now? What do you think about what Wizards is doing with their product line? Do you think about seasons? Like, I'm going to write, like, you know, maybe you sit down this weekend and you say, I'm going to write something for Christmas, you know, a Christmas theme thing. Do you have any sort of strategy in terms of, or is it more about what's inspiring you at the moment?
For me, it's more about what's inspiring me at the moment.
Okay.
Now, it would be beneficial if I wrote based on the current Wizards books, but I don't always have something inspiring or in the back of my mind that's going to tie into that book. Now, the Ravenloft book that they just announced is pretty cool because I like horror, and I really like to write horror. So I'm hoping I can tie into that. But other times, I just get ideas for different adventures, and they may not sell well, but I still put my ideas on paper, and it's out there for people to enjoy. And I feel accomplished getting it in paper, you know, putting some art with it or a map or something, and getting it out there for people to pick up if they want it to. But inspiration for me, I mean, and when you're talking about some of these projects like that tie into the official Wizards of the Coast projects, you know, I've got several projects already lined up, so that when I finally hear, okay, we're releasing the Ravenloft book, well, I've got too much going on to actually jump into a new adventure or an encounters project and just have that ready to go by the time it's released. And I think May, I think it's coming out. So yeah, being busy isn't always good, I guess,
Right.
is what I'm
Right.
trying to say. Having
Yeah.
several stories in the back of your mind or projects that you're working on kind of keeps you from being able to jump right into things, new projects.
Well, and I know like
But you know,
the I think they're still doing the Guild of Depths. I kind of haven't been paying so much attention to a lot of that stuff recently, but like I know from listening to some of those folks talk about things on podcasts over the last few years, like they'll be, the Adepts folks will get like the heads up on stuff, so that way when like when Theros dropped, there was Encounters in Theros on the DMs Guild ready to go.
yeah, they'll get the books early,
Yeah.
and I don't think I've seen too much new stuff come out. I know MT Black and some others put out the puzzle book. James Citricasso dropped his My Dad's Monster Manual.
That book is so
which
good.
was a great idea. But I haven't seen anything much new come out from them. And I think James, I don't know. I think they've lost a couple of adepts, and I haven't heard of a replacement yet on a couple of them. But so I'm not sure what the program is, if it's still going or if they're adding to it or continuing with it.
Yeah, there's
But that stuff sells really well.
all sorts of people moving around and doing different things, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking of which, looking through your catalog, you work with people quite a bit. I guess I don't know ultimately what capacity, but there are in many of your products, it's you and a few, at least one or two other people's names in some cases. I guess where's I have it written. I have it written down so I don't like jack up my stupid question. Oh, I didn't write it very good.
Haven't you ever heard, Chad? There's
that's
no
my
such
fault.
thing as a dumb question. They're all good questions. I heard that somewhere.
Not when you write like me sometimes. I guess like what for you, what's been like some real strong points as far as like collabing, working with other folks, especially in cases where they may or may not necessarily, you're not like sitting across the table from somebody, you're working online and that kind of stuff. Talk to us a little bit about maybe that process and what's made you successful at Collab.
Yeah, so with the first time I collaborated with anybody, I think it's the first time, it was when I did the Savage Encounters in the Savage Frontier, and I had read the Storm King's Thunder book, and there's this huge section in there that's just kind of like an open world for the Savage Frontier where you can just kind of do whatever you want. And so I reached out to many Dungeon Masters Guild creators then and said, "Hey, I'm putting this book together. I'll pay you so much money if you write an encounter for this." And they're like, "Yeah, sure, okay." We kept it short. And then, there's a bunch of names on that book, and I kind of continued that with all of the Savage Encounters books. I wanted to reach out to new creators and established creators, and kind of give them this way of being introduced to a large audience, with established creators and new creators, and just kind of show off different styles. And so that did really well, and I continue to do that with the same with the NPC writing, villains and layers, and just for one, those are huge projects, and writing that many little short encounters or adventures or NPCs on my own is just ridiculous. I mean, I could do it if I had a year, but there were other things I wanted to get done, and also somebody reading my same style over and over and over again might just get a little bored. So that's why I brought in other writers to kind of give it just different flair in each adventure. So that was those were my first attempts at collaboration. Those worked really well. And then when I came to write the Madhouse of Tasha's Kiss, I was writing it, and I've always loved Rimley Farr's writing. If you haven't checked out any of his stuff on the Dungeon Masters Guild, give it a look, because he's a great writer and a storyteller, and creator. And so I've always wanted to work with him, and it just happened to work out that I said, "Hey, Rimley, I'm working on this idea. Would you care to write for me?" And he said, "Sure." So I paid him a base rate and then gave him some royalty off of it. I can't give a whole lot of royalty because of how much I invest in the products, because I commission the cover art and the maps and the internal art and editing and everything like that. So, but trickling sales is always good for a co-writer. And so that one turned out so well that I said, okay, Rimley, I think we have to do Happy Jacks now, and then we want to tie this into Tasha's Kiss, and we want to keep it loose. And so we did that one, and then we did Annalise's Revenge. And then when I was doing Blinsky's Toy Shop, because that was just going to be all me, I'm like, this could really use a little touch of Rimley Farr, I think. And so Rimley came in and wrote Mr. Fitzy Bottoms, which is the dog who lives under the toy shop, and it's pretty cool stuff. And so from there, we're actually writing another adventure tied off of that one, which will come out in October.
That's awesome.
But it's all about it. Yes, I can write an interesting story, I think, which I did with the House of the Midnight Violet. But it's always cool to work with a collaborator or somebody else to read it and say, hey, it'd be really cool if you added this, and how about if we do this, or if we change this up to this? And they're like, wow, I never thought about that. I would never come up with that idea on my own. And so that's why I have started working with other people. I still have my own stories I want to tell and write. Mm-hmm. It's just all these other projects keep coming up, and one of these days I'll be at this full time and I'll have more time to dedicate it to it. But until that time, I'm trying not to go insane with a day job writing and still, having some fun playing Xbox or something.
Right. Jeff, when you're putting together these multi collaborator projects and you're the lead on it, you mentioned a little bit, I want to kind of dig in a little bit. You mentioned, like you're hiring people, paying them a flat rate, if you will, for a product, a defined product, plus potentially a royalty off of the sales. Are you developing formalized agreements with these people, written contracts, or is it more of like a gentleman's handshake kind of idea? I'm guessing it's the former and not the latter, but wondering if you might talk a little bit about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's both actually. Some people I've worked with multiple times, and so it's more like a gentleman's agreement with I've got the email saying that this is what we're doing. So if anything comes back, then we've got an agreement there. For the most part, I don't think anybody, unless they're not going to get paid for something, I think most people are willing to accept, okay, an email agreement or, a Twitter message or something like that. As long, if they do the work and I pay them, then we've established this history of me being positive on my word and paying them. And so, I think it's good there. With other people that I haven't worked with before, or for larger projects, like my Kickstarter, all the writers on that had agreements. That I would pay them a certain amount by a certain date, just because the amount was fairly good, and I wanted to make sure that they were paid, that the information of when they were going to get paid was there. So yeah, you can go back and forth on that how you want to do it. If it's a group of buddies, writing something, you don't need an agreement. But if it's something, as the individual, I can always ask, okay, can I get something written down for that I'm going to provide you 3,000 words at 5 cents a word for $150. Can you write something up like that? And I'm sure, I can provide that to you if you want. But I've gone both ways. I've used official contracts or agreements and just, handshakes.
And then are you pretty explicit in terms of what the expectation is? Like, here's exactly what I need from you. Or do you oftentimes say, it's kind of this idea, like create something and let's see what you got?
I've gone both ways. Like when Rimley and I work, I kind of say, okay, I've got these rooms in this map. I need you to do something with them. And this is kind of the theme of the adventure. And so he'll come up with that, and I might tweak it if I need to fit the adventure a little bit more. Other times, like with the Villains and Layers projects, I've provided them a template, the writer a template with basically, I need a background, I need flaws, I need, what they want. I need a stat block, all based on this image. And so I'll send this image to them to use as inspiration. And then they basically use that image and create this character.
Cool. That's great. I think that insight's pretty helpful for people like ourselves and others who are sort of dipping their toes, so to speak, into the pool of writing and publishing these types of products. This is really helpful, I think.
Yeah, when you're developing a collaboration of adventures and encounters, you want to kind of keep the template the same. It's really hard for writers to write to a template. I talked about this on another show a couple of weeks ago, I think, with someone that because each writer has their own style, and how they tell their story is a little bit different. So when you're trying to fit that into a specific template, that can be difficult at times. So not all of my, especially with my Kickstarter for Adventures for the Potbellied Kobold, when I had the 15 writers write for that, I gave them a template, and some veered from it, some stayed right with it. It doesn't matter to me. It's still the adventures there. If it doesn't match the template, it's okay with that. And I state that in the introduction section, that you may see different styles of writing within this book of adventures, because I use different writers, and I didn't want to take away from their creativity, their creative process.
Do you
And
typically have to do right? Do you typically have to do a whole lot of editing once you get those assignments
it depends. I can sit there, I can read an adventure and say, this is great the way it is. Okay. But then going through playtesting, some things popped up, and like a question that I could see other people asking. I'm like, okay, well, I have to add a little section here because of that question, or we're adding a little bit to the story here to make it flow a little bit easier. That's typical in playtesting, I think. And the after the editing of something that's turned into you. But a lot of times you don't have to edit an adventure. If you can read it as the DM and say, okay, I know what to do here, I know what to do here, something's missing, that's okay. I'm a dungeon master, I'm skilled, I can run with it.
Absolutely.
Because you get to a point where there's too much text in a document.
Yeah. Right.
There could be too much written in an adventure that may happen 1 in 10 times that the DM doesn't need to know. We write adventures thinking that, okay, some of the stuff, it may go off the rails. Your characters may do something completely crazy, like turn into a cow and charge Happy Jack and try and kill him that way. I never saw or thought of anybody doing that in order to confront Happy Jack, but hey, it worked.
If you would have known,
cow.
yeah, if we would have known, we would have given Happy Jack like a cow tipping feature or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Or a taser.
Yeah. Right.
Fantastic. Laughing about that made me lose what my question was going to be. Oh boy. Man. What so writing for the DMs Guild, right? Within at least X reason, it's all kind of within the Wizards of the Coast IP set. And I know some of your stuff is like you're kind of all over the board, it seems, with like some stuff that is specifically like in an IP. Some stuff is a little more, I guess, generalized, right? How has it been for you, like as far as like the kind of conceptualization and then execution process of say working within like their IP, and like the considerations that you essentially need to take to make it make sense, whether or not it's for you or the ultimately the end user, or the weird people on the internet who don't actually read it, play anything, they just read stuff and complain about it.
Right. So I try and write as generic as possible, but tie into IP, because I don't want a DM to have to say, okay, we have to play this in Ravenloft, or no, we have to play this with the Curse of Strahd or Saltmarsh campaign.
Sure.
So I try and write ways. Well, like Blinsky's Toy Shop. Well, we all know what that is. It's going to happen in Barovia. But I also say, well, you could change the name of it. Put it wherever you want. Do whatever you want with this adventure. It's the storyline or the actual adventure is what's most important. It doesn't matter where it occurs. But then with other things, I say, okay, well, if you're playing Curse of Strahd, drop this here, or you can tie this in as a one shot to Curse of Strahd or something like that. I know a lot of people who do really well tying to the IP. So, and you do see a lot of products that are tied to the current books do very well. And like I said, I've had so many projects ahead of or on schedule that when I hear about the new book, I just don't have a lot of time to write into something that's tied into that. which is unfortunate. But I don't know. There's enough people I think doing that to where I've got a good enough or a large enough fan base or audience they're going to appreciate the other things that I do.
Yeah, that's like one of the things I learned in a panel I was at. Like the big thing is to kind of know your corner. Just,
Mm-hmm.
know what you're doing, know your voice, know what you're good at, and know your
Exactly.
audience.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
know, like, for me, thinking about like writing, say for the DMs Guild, I'll be like, okay, well, I'm gonna write something in Forgotten Realms, and then of course, being a long time follower of the Forgotten Realms, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'll do this, and then you do some research, and you're like, fuck, this doesn't make any sense anymore. like, oh, I read a 4th edition book that totally absconded with that NPC or whatever. Yeah, I think you're on the right track. Play it a little
Yeah.
more generic.
If you could, I mean, you could write in an area, but just don't. I would say don't use the NPCs that are in the world because you never know
Right.
what's going to happen with them.
Right.
You never know what the official writers are going to say. Okay, well, he's dead, and then
Yeah.
your adventure is based off all the that character, and like, well, it doesn't make any sense now. So
Yeah.
I try and create new characters, and then maybe kind of give a tie-in to like Strahd or whoever, and it just works easier for me, best for me, I think.
Well, like Happy Jacks at the remember that chat at the end of Happy Jacks, you guys ended up in the mists of Barovia. And everybody was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, reveal." That was fun. I love that tie-in that you put into that book, Jeff. That was really cool at the end. That was fun.
Yeah, we wanted to as many people to be able to use that adventure as possible, and just having these additional ideas on how to use it is just kind of cool.
Jeff, how long have you been doing the writing for RPGs? How long has this been going on? And have you seen your productivity increase over the years as you keep doing more? You get better with your craft, that sort of thing.
I was producing like a madman for a long time, and now I've kind of slowed down a little bit, just because I've put more money into my projects.
Okay.
I'm making money on. Let me look up. I think it was 2016 was my first.
I think in your bio is like mid 2016 was your first publication.
June 2016. So what? Going on 5 years now. Woo!
Yeah,
That's going by fast.
awesome. That's awesome, man.
So back then, couple years, I was just kind of. I had ideas, and I was writing, and I was creating, and collaborating. I just seemed to have so much more time, and now I'm just kind of slowing down a little bit because I have all these products on the Dungeon Masters Guild, and I'm trying to create a better product. I think spending more time trying to develop the storyline a little more. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if the additional time is actually worth it or not. Because an adventure, bare bones, you don't need a whole lot to it to run an adventure. So I don't know. It's just been really. I say I'm slowing down, but I've also been working on my Kickstarter for the past 3 months, trying to get that finished up, and that's almost in test print phase. So that's been a lot of work too, and I have a great team who helped me with that, from the artists to the photographers to the writers to the editors, proofreaders, and my layout artist Alan Tucker. They worked so hard on that project, and I'm anxious to get it out for people to see it. But for the fall, I have several things lined up. Like I mentioned, another adventure with Brimley Farr. Actually worked with Ed Greenwood, hired him to write a short story for one of my adventures, and then kind of
so badass.
He wrote a cool story for it, and I gave him kind of the basic idea, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. He was like, yeah, I can write something about that. So we're gonna work on the adventure based on the short story, and I think it's gonna be cool.
That's really good.
And my brother and I are working on an adventure together. And my brother, like I said, he was the one to get me back into D&D back in 2015, since it published in 2016. So owe him almost all this, but don't tell him that because I don't want to give him any percentage of my royalties.
Yeah, Brian, if you're listening right now, cover your ears, buddy. Cover your ears.
My ears are burning. Yeah, I think, and I probably talked about this when I was on your show, Jeff, that I think it pays to. Well, maybe pay in this context is the right word, but I think it's better to do a better product. I'd be interested to see, like, yeah, like you could like write something super quick, bare bones, not, a good product, but not like a great product. And,
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna, people might buy it and download it. But, and this is always the hard part for me, like thinking about it as a business, we're like, yeah, people are buying my product, but are those people actually using it?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the thing. Like I feel bad sometimes when I buy it's like this seems cool and I buy it and then I'm like, I read it now. I don't know that I'm going to use it, or I'm not,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm only going to use a little bit of it.
Which,
Um,
with my products, I'm fine with that. If you just use
yeah,
a piece of it, a part of
yeah,
it as inspiration to start something, that's cool. I mean,
yeah,
I still helped
yep,
you. But I think some of those products are just so different and the art and the maps are just so intriguing that people are like, this is really cool. And
yeah,
some of them have actually said in the comments that there should be like a trigger warning on this because of body horror, that type of
horror and
thing. And
stuff.
Oh yeah.
yeah, so we added those. But it's just fun to see people and hear people's comments on it.
And I know like one of the big things that people in the kind of RPG design space talk about a lot, is like to really be successful, like the guys that are really firing on all cylinders at the top, like the stuff that they have coming out this year, like they designed 5-6 years ago, because they're always thinking like, what's the next thing? Where is our game going?
Wow.
Um, which is bonkers to me.
Yeah.
Like are you able to put yourself in a headspace like that, or I guess, or like you said, you're just kind of, I'm writing what I like and what interests me in the moment.
For right now, I'm probably a year out.
Mhm.
A year, and Adventures for my Kickstarter, Adventures for the Potbelly Kobold, ran in. So the Kickstarter ran in November and fulfilled in November. But I started planning that out a year ahead of time, hiring
Mhm.
writers, getting the work in, getting the art and the maps for about half of it, because I wanted to have something to show when I ran the Kickstarter. I wanted to have
Yeah.
people something to give to people. I gave away one of the adventures for free for a while. And so that one, I was a year out on that one, and then now it's been 6 months since it's fulfilled. Actually, not even that, but close. And I've been spending a lot of time on that too, and just trying to not drain myself out. And so
Yeah.
that's why I'm a little bit behind in some of my writing where I wanted to be. But I think a fall releases are better for me anyway than trying to do something in the summer, because summer's busy. You do other things, and other people are, especially now. If we all get this vaccine, I think everybody's gonna be traveling this summer. Get out of the house.
I hope so. Somewhere with
Yeah,
a beach.
yeah. But maybe one of these days I'll be 2 to 3 years out as
Yeah.
far as what I'm working on.
Oh wow.
What? Tell us a little bit more about your Kickstarter, Jeff. Just for people who may
Oh,
not know about it.
sure. It's called Adventures from the Potbellied Kobold. It is 15 adventures, short adventures, with a playtime between, 30 minutes, hour to 2 to 3 hours. We wanted something that a DM could just drop into their game, if they needed a one shot because a couple people could make it, but they still wanted to play. If their group went off the rails and they needed to add something to the adventure, or just kind of inspiration for another adventure. So these are all um, short adventures written by, I've got James Centricasso on there, MT Black, Hannah Rose, Honey Winslow Brills, some big names in the industry actually wrote for me for this. And they're designed for levels. The first adventure is basically a level 2 adventure, but we also included scaling suggestions on how you can dial that down to a level 1 or higher to level 3, which we did for all the adventures. Each adventure is basically, if you don't have a level 5 group, if you got a level 6, but you play it for level 6. We just make these adjustments. And also in each of the adventures, we give advice on how to integrate creatures from Cobalt Press's Tome of Beasts or Creature Codex. and we actually were able to include the stat blocks to those in one of the appendixes because Cobalt Press allows you to do those.
Cool.
Include the stat blocks with your releases. Yeah. So if you don't have the books, you can still use the creatures based in that book. We created new creatures. We created new magic items, maps, art. It was just a big project. I wanted my first project to be something really cool, and I came up with that idea for Adventures from the Possibility Called. And I think it's a pretty nice little product, and it's going to be coming out soon. Probably hitting Drive-Thru RPG for sale in it's March, mid-April or May.
Okay.
We're at test print.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but can people pre-order anything on your Kickstarter page or anything like that?
No, I don't have pre-orders up. This is my first Kickstarter, so I'm trying to keep everything really simple for me.
Yep.
Making sure I take care of the backers and everything. Next time I'll figure out how to do pre-orders and add-ons and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I was just happy that it funded, and
That's great.
which it funded at thank you. It funded at $15,000, which about 25 to 30% of that goes to taxes right off the bat. So that gave me a budget around $12,000, and it cost $12,000 or more to make. Just with all the arts, the writing, the editing, layout. I mean, these big books are expensive. You could probably do it for cheaper if you use stock art, but I wanted original art for this, and I wanted to support other artists, other cartographers, other writers in the RPG industry, just because, if I'm making money, I want to help others make money too. So yeah, I'm really excited for this project to come out. And the adventures are fun. I've play tested most of them and had a great time with my groups. And yeah, it's a cool product. I'm excited for it to come out.
That's
Me too.
fantastic.
That's great.
How was it kind of, I guess, lining up all of that talent, all of those folks, how much of that was, kind of the slow road networking over the previous few years, and how much of it was like blasting out stuff? Hey, I've got this product coming out. Your stuff is cool.
No, I contacted each of the writers individually. Have made connection with them over the past few years, and said, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm paying. If you're interested, let me know. And they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And I had some people that couldn't do it just because of time wise, that type of thing. So that's why I had to start a year ahead of this project. Because I couldn't wait till the thing to fund and then find 15 writers to write adventures for me in 6 months. Get the art and the maps and the editing, and I would have been a nutcase.
Yeah.
So having most of this, it was about 90% complete by the time I launched the Kickstarter.
So basically you put yourself out there and said, I'm making this either way. If it gets Kickstarted or not, this thing is happening, and I'm gonna foot the bill, or backers are gonna help me make it happen. That's gutsy.
Exactly what happened.
That's great.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do it. If it didn't fulfill in Kickstarter, it was still gonna happen. So that's a gutsy move. Yeah, I don't recommend that for a lot of people because that's a lot of money to drop into a project. But I'm happy that it fulfilled, and hopefully my next one does even better. Being a first-time Kickstarter too, this is my first created. So some people on Kickstarter say, well, how's he going to do this? First time created, he's got no track record. Do I want to back him? But luckily I had some great backers, and really excited to get the product out to him.
That's great.
That's super exciting. Should we have a question? We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, we sure do.
I'm so excited about that. It's, of course, from friend of the show, Christian Zuck, who was our guest last episode. If you're out there in watching land and don't know who Christian Zuck is, Google him. He's a good writer too. Also watch our previous episode. But his question is, Jeff, what would you tell new creators, new writers, that could help them shorten the path to success or be successful, I guess, just in general?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a way to do that. I think, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I think a lot of successful people either have a really interesting product that somebody hasn't done before, an interesting take on an adventure, or they get lucky. They hit the market at the right time with the right product. Say they were writing an adventure based on Ravenloft, okay, and then it hits the same time the Ravenloft book comes out. Like, hey, what a coincidence, They weren't
Right.
even thinking of doing that. It just happened. Um, there are a lot of products that come out. There are a lot of products that I write that I think are going to be great sellers, and they don't sell. It's just because you don't know what the consumer wants. So I really don't know of an answer to that, of a good answer to that question.
I really like what you said though about being lucky to a certain extent, but I
Yeah.
think what is also true, and I don't know this from being a publisher of RPG stuff, but in my own career path that I've had, the luck that I've had in my career has been a result of the work that I've put in. So I feel like the more you work, and in this context, the more you publish, the more content you create, the higher the chances are that you'll get lucky with something, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Exactly. Yep.
if you're constantly strategizing and trying to find the perfect product, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss that
Right.
opportunity.
Yeah. It's more difficult now to get lucky with a product because there are so many creators on the Dungeon Masters Guild. So in 2016, when I was writing, there were very few. I mean, like maybe a few hundred, maybe 1,000. But now there's just so many. I couldn't even tell you how many creators are there on. That you see that newest titles thread just keep moving all day long. Something gets added to it, and you may publish something in the morning, then it's 20 titles down now, because you lose sight of it. I got lucky with Encounters on the Savage Seas because right when I was about halfway through that, they announced the Saltmarsh book. I'm like, oh, hey, great timing, lucky there. And some other products that I never, Madhouse Tasha's Kiss, got lucky with that one because it's just so different that people just pick up on it and run it. But I've also had a lot of non-lucky products, and the biggest thing is to take away from that is just keep producing. Don't get discouraged. If you want to do this full time, or if you just love doing it, just keep doing it. You may not be making a lot of money, and it's very rare for a first-time creator to publish something and make a lot of money off of it. You've got to keep building up your product line and making new things, because you may have that one product that sells like crazy, and people are like, well, what else did this person make? And then your other stuff starts picking up in sales. But it's a lot of work, and I've seen people who have put up a great product, sells fantastic, just off the charts, and then the next product they put up isn't what the consumer is looking for, so it doesn't sell as well. It's knowing the audience, and you can't always just.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but knowing
No.
who you're creating for, who the audience is, a little bit of
Yeah.
luck, and then tell us. I know we're kind of running out of time, but tell us a little bit about marketing. Like, what role does marketing play, and do you have any tips for people who might be looking to, build acknowledgement that they're even creating products?
It's so tough. I mean, you've got Twitter is great for networking, but it's pretty poor for sales. I don't know. It's hard to tell how many people actually buy my products. You see it on Twitter. Facebook groups can sometimes be hit and miss because, if you're in the big Dungeons & Dragons 5e group, you post a title up there. Sometimes it gets a lot of comments and likes, and sometimes it just goes right down. Nobody does it. Nobody says anything about it.
That place is a quagmire.
Yeah, it's horrible. Reddit's hit and miss. Sometimes they like a lot of free stuff on Reddit, but other times I've had a lot of support. So I think if you build your name up on Reddit too, if other people have bought your products and see that you do create cool stuff, they're more likely to hit like. Websites, newsletters.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I noticed that on your webpage you have a newsletter sign up and an email list.
Yeah, trying to build that sign up list is really tough because a lot of people don't want to get spammed, in their email boxes and that type of thing. So I try and send out sporadic, maybe 1 or 2 emails a month, maybe one every couple months. I don't want to bog people down with stuff from me. But yeah, marketing is so tough. It's very tough.
It's
and the best marketing, I think, is word of mouth. Having somebody mention your product on the podcast, or say we played this game and it was awesome, or just a tweet about it, or a Facebook mention or something like that. That's the best marketing that we can ask for, is just word of mouth.
That's awesome. I have one more question, and then I'll hand it over to Chad here. tell us real briefly about Jeff Talks RPG. What's the idea behind that show, and when does it air? That sort of thing. When can people check it out?
Cool. Yeah. Jeff Talks RPGs was basically just an idea I had where I just wanted to have a sit down with people and just talk about games and RPGs. Not necessarily a list of predetermined questions. I do supply, a list of, okay, these are some topics we might talk about, but basically it's just like an open discussion. We may start with a topic and just rattle on and not go back to that topic again. Just more, a relaxed discussion amongst creators, or, in the first episode I had Chad on and a couple other individuals where we just talked about the creator wanting to know what the consumer was looking for in an RPG product. And so, yeah, it's more just like a discussion group. I don't know what the next topic will be. I got to interview Ed Greenwood once. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, a great interview, good discussion, basically. And so, yeah, I just kind of watched the industry, Twitter, and other things, and to kind of come up with ideas of what could be on the show. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk taxes.
Oh, yeah, right. It's tax season.
RPG creators and taxes, one of these days, or expenses you can write off, that type of thing. But
yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. But yeah, it's basically, it happens once a month. I don't have a set date. We usually try and go on Monday nights. But Jenny Loveday I'm using her Twitch channel for this. I said, Jenny, I've got an idea. I don't know anything about how to do this. Can we run it through you? She goes, yeah, I'll be the back person and produce it for you and everything like that. So kudos to Jenny. I appreciate all your help you've given me. And it's been a lot of fun.
Good.
Talking with different people.
Yeah. It's been fun to watch.
Oh, thanks.
I was impressed by how much Dr. Pepper at Greenwood drank during the the interview was great, but it was like, oh, yep, you're just drinking right out of the 2-liter. You know what you are about, sir.
It's Ed Greenwood who's gonna
No, yeah. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just impressed.
Yep.
That's great.
That was pretty awesome. Well, we are at that time, sadly, where we must stop talking in this manner and go on with the rest of our days. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here on our show. It has been great. I've learned some stuff. Hopefully, Dave also learned some stuff. I don't want to speak for him. Hopefully, our viewers learned some stuff. Yeah, it was good. Again, thank you. So if you're watching, follow Jeff on Twitter. Jeff, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at J Corvin Stevens, JCorvinStevens. It's one of the worst Twitter handles in the world, but I had no idea what I was doing when I set up my Twitter account, so that's the one I'm stuck with. You can also visit my website, jeffstevensgames.com. You can find most of my stuff there too.
And
so check your stuff out there.
I was just going to say one more thing. I knew I said I wasn't going to say anything else, but we do have a link in the stream chat to Blinsky's toy shop with a cool special discount for viewers. So check that out too. And Jeff, I just want to also echo Chad and just say thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot. I had a lot of fun. I like talking to people, and this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Join us Wednesday, Beyond Saltmarsh, 2 Saturdays from now, right here for, we're going to talk about our Altered State game. And then March 18th, wow. Remembering is hard sometimes. Join us for the session 0 of our Svealand game. It's going to be awesome. Vikings, lots of murder, I'm sure. There's going to be some bloodshed, berserkers, all the things that you love about that kind of stuff. We're going to do it. Yeah. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Play some games, do things, go for a walk. You've been inside for too long.